I'm Katherine Druckman. I am with Intel. These are my colleagues who I will, let them introduce themselves, but thanks for coming, for one. So we're really going to have just a conversation here. We are here to help. So we'll get to that, but first, go ahead and introduce yourselves.
I'm Tabatha DiDomenico. I'm a developer relations engineer for G Research. I've been there for 2 years, and I'm seated in their OSPO. Part of my role includes encouraging safe practices of ingesting open source components and ensuring that what we're throwing over the wall aligns with best practices in the ecosystems that are receiving them it's appropriate for.
Sure. So I'm Lorusso. I'm head of community at Percona. I'm a CNCF ambassador, DOK SIG co-chair, CDF ambassador. If you haven't realized, it's a bunch of other foundations, and I'm pretty sure if OpenSSF had an ambassador program, I would be in that as well. So my job is very not what Tabatha does, which is amazing. My job is to be in the community, and specifically for Percona, it's to sit in on all of these foundations and find out ways that we can help lend our expertise to some open source projects, but also like ways that we can, work on open source projects or add to the open source projects that we're currently working on. So Percona is a completely open source company, which is amazing. We make our money through selling support and services, but you can download anything that we make for free today without paying us a dime.
Awesome. And since I didn't actually finish my introduction, I guess I should do that now. So I am Katherine Druckman. I did mention I work for Intel, but I do a lot of other things, right? And that's why we're here. We're here to talk about those. So among the things that I do, I co-chair the DevRel community within the OpenSSF. So that's primarily, again, why we're here. I do a bunch of other things too, though. I am currently leading a security working group for a new AI platform, Open Platform for Enterprise AI. I'm involved in several other things to do with OpenSSF. So yeah, I'm very much an open source person. I'm heavily biased in favor of open source communities. But of course, open source does have its challenges, being distributed and full of humans. So that's kind of what we're here to talk about. We have a few slides.
So you wanted to start with anybody else being involved in OpenSSF. So I was a part of a company that was one of the founding members of OpenSSF. So I've been around. I'm like a dinosaur in the room, which is saying
Lori's been here the whole time.
OpenSSF hasn't been around that long, but it's been really cool to watch this idea of a security foundation grow into what it is today, which I forget how many projects we currently have, because when we started we had
12.
Yeah, we had an idea. But how many of you are members of OpenSSF or work on any OpenSSF projects? We've got one. Not yet.
Okay.
Love it with the wink, love it. Anyone else? So why are you guys here today? This isn't a bad question. This is a good question. Because this is... Yes,
what brought you here?
We want to make this, as tailored to this audience as possible, because when we get into this, you'll see that OpenSSF is and can be...
Overwhelming. It's okay. You can say it. It's overwhelming. It's totally fine.
Yeah, there's other words I was thinking about, but overwhelming is a good one. That is PG.
It's a bit of a choose your own adventure when you join the OpenSSF.
So you know what? Here, I'll do the Oprah thing.
Okay.
I'll do the Oprah thing. Let's do the thing. Let's do the thing. Okay. Let's get out and about. We're going to start with you. We're putting everyone on the spot today. Tell us what brought you here to the conference.
We work for a financial services company, and we're generally trying to figure out usually how to make it a better developer experience to consume open source, or ways that our organization can give back to the open source community.
I love everything I just heard.
Finos, also a good resource.
Okay. I think we, just really quickly.
I work at Tidelift. We are an OpenSSF member, and we participate in the scorecard project and other things around and about.
And tell us what's really big.
We pay the maintainers.
No, you're giving a talk this week. Oh. It's her first talk that she's giving. That's really big.
It's my first talk.
Yeah. So we'll get to that in a minute, but a lot of DevRel is giving talks. What brought you here?
I'm giving a talk later today, actually.
Awesome. What's it about?
SCA.
Okay, quickly.
I'm a software developer. I'm interested in security, and so I want to be with like-minded people.
Boom.
Fabulous. That is exactly what DevRel communities are for.
I am leading a consortium outreach committee, and then it has open source projects. And I want to understand better about the developer and then the relations and yeah, just understand.
Fabulous. Quick question. Is anybody here, is this true for anybody? Is today your first experience with anything OpenSSF? Does that apply to anyone? Fabulous.
Yeah,
Okay,
put your
well, I'm
hand
really
down.
glad that I see you.
So, by the way, what was just demonstrated is something that's later on in our talk, which is go to the Slack channel. Why I love being at conferences is because it's an in-person Slack channel, right? We're not like on screens, we're not on Zooms, and again, the whole purpose of this talk is to try and find or help you find the resources you need
Yes.
within the OpenSSF ecosphere, because again, it is, what was the word we used?
Overwhelming.
Overwhelming.
Complex.
So really
PG.
quickly, I think, let's talk about really why we're here, right? Why is this conversation so important? Lori, why is this conversation so important?
So if you will see here, Vanna White, it is the number of open source downloads. Like, I like to include QR codes on my slides because instead of taking pictures of slides, I think it's better when you actually have the information. So when you go through your, just a tip, when you go through your Chrome or your whatever browser, you can actually find the information you're looking for instead of a picture, because what does that mean? Nothing. But as you see, the open source downloads is doing nothing but increasing. So open source is like not going anywhere. Yes?
Doesn't this just coincide with CI/CD that doesn't cache? Like, you're artificial inflating after 2020 because of the increasing use of complete rebuilds and Docker images, fetching everything versus some of the
Yes and no. The reality is that the number of packages of open source libraries, software, anything is massively on the rise.
Have you heard of AI? That
Well,
could
it's
also
well, I
be
mean,
a
yeah,
bit
there's
of a
that.
spike.
Come to my talk in the morning tomorrow. I have a really, really disturbing slide about how much the proliferation of open source software might affect all of us. So-
Also, you can go to the QR code and then talk to Sonatype and say, hey, are you conflating numbers here? Because, hey.
The numbers are really kind of overwhelming. I recommend checking out a site called Ecosystems. It's a .ms domain, and it shows some really, really staggering numbers. So.
And there's vulnerability stuff that's the names issues.
I think it still illustrates that over time, the complexity has grown,
Right.
the amount of open source that exists has grown over the years.
Yeah.
And with no
Communities are
anticipation that
growing
that's
too,
stopping,
by the
yes.
way. More people are writing open source code, and what does that mean? Humans, we're great, but we introduce complexity and we introduce points of failure. We're not perfect. I don't know about anybody here, but I've written a fair amount of code in my life, and a lot of it's not very good.
I cringe when I look
And
at
I'm
some
okay
code
with
I used
admitting that because I know it's true for all of you too. I know for a fact. So we wanted to just kind of, take the pulse a little bit, right? What do we think about when we think about open source software, right? It's free. Anyone want to jump in and give us a little free as in example? There you go. That's a good one. Anybody else? What do we think of when we think of the freedoms of open source software?
Free as in freedom.
Free as in freedom, and not free as in beer. Okay, another common one.
I
Anybody
was like,
else?
am I the only one that thought about beer at 11:30 in the morning? Okay.
Somebody else mentioned beer.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Free as in what? Okay, well, fine. Puppies it is. So that's mine. Her name is Dimples, and she's the best. Anyway, but what does this mean, right? What does it mean to be free as in puppy? Why do we keep saying that? And why do we say free as in freedom, not as in beer? Anyone? Anyone want to jump in other than us? I mean,
Get it.
Oh, I like that actually. Free as in freeway. Huh. It gets you from point A to point B.
And Atlanta for sure, taking your own risk. Oh, God.
Oh, well, no more
There
Dimples.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, so what does this mean, really? Puppies require what? A lot of care, a lot of attention, a lot of feeding, right? And that's not just about code. It's also about people. We are those people, but you are also those people.
So why are we talking about security now when open source has been around forever? I don't know how many of you have heard of the executive order on improving the nation's cybersecurity that was May 12, 2021, or how about the EU Cyber Resilience Act? Yeah, hands up. So what does this mean? That means the government got involved. And why did the government get involved in open source when we have been a wild, wild west of development for years? Could it be because of,
Sorry, I'm on it.
SolarWinds? Who's heard of the SolarWinds attack in 2020? Right? Like, can we look at some of the agencies that were affected? Could it be because the Department of Homeland Security or our National Nuclear Security Administration was impacted? Department of Commerce, the average cost to companies, $12 million. We still don't really know what the actual cost of mitigating this response was. So what did the government do? They said, oh, no, no, no.
Panic.
Time to look under the covers and figure out what is going on with all of you crazy developers. What is up? Why is nobody taking care of the puppies? Where are all these holes coming from, and what's up with these malicious
Won't
actors?
someone think of the puppies? Sorry, I had to. Oh, this is Tabatha's slide.
So it still seems, speaking about vulnerabilities, a lot of the vulnerabilities that exist in the open source world are vulnerabilities that have existed for a very long time. We are still solving for the same problems we were solving for in the 90s. So as it exists now, we are solving yesterday's problems tomorrow. And this is sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Like, we have all of this stuff, still not remediating it, don't have a great way to get a handle on it. We need to do something. So from there.
So what happens when we need to do something? Where do we go? We go to the community, right? Because the community, as is everybody in this room, we are stewards of innovation and change. Everyone has a seat at the table, and we all work together to solve problems. And then where does that get us? That gets us to why we're here today, which is OpenSSF.
Oh, but look at all that.
What the
Okay.
What the F? OpenSSF,
So
too many Fs.
Here's the thing about the OpenSSF. Let's keep it real. There's a lot of really great work, so much great work, almost too much great work, right? Maybe not enough people to do that great work. And all of these things are, in many cases, a lot of the work is tools that will help all of us do our jobs, right? It will help all of us fix all of these issues. Well, okay, maybe not all of them. It will help us improve our security posture. It will help us respond to the things we just talked about, right? More packages, more software to evaluate, more threats, all of these things are true. But, so if you look at this, and then I'm going to we're going to show another slide. Look at all this great work. It's really impressive. Some of the people that are contributing heavily to this great work are in the room with us. Are they here with us right now? I see a couple of them. I will not call them out. But there are a couple. And there's so much of it, but it's an embarrassment of riches, right? So you come in as a newcomer, and here you are all today, and I'm so excited. After class, I would love to know how people found, how did you get here, actually? I'm curious to know what led you here, aside from just to learn. Like, how did you even find out about it?
I could say that, oh, I'm sorry, Katherine.
No, go ahead.
Just speaking on that, like, how did we arrive here? How did each of us arrive here? And the complexity that we observed, initially trying to get involved with
very
OpenSSF
confusing.
is very confusing. And so one of the things today that we really want to address is how to get started in navigating all of this.
So now that we've got you here, now what do we do, right? So the key here and the challenge is getting all of this great work into the hands of people who need it. Now, in many cases, that's developers and maintainers. Who else might it be? Might it be Tabatha right next to me?
It might be end users, it might be OSPOs, it could be software publishers and producers, it could be, there's a whole range of personas that these problems solve for. And one project solves not just for one persona, it often solves a problem for multiple personas in that.
So given all of this, and given the difficulty of navigating and finding where you belong and which tools might be for you versus what tools might be for your colleagues in another department or another project.
Okay, so this is my most hated phrase. Just go to the website. Just go to the website. Like, you'll find it, just go to the website. It's probably another reason why I'm like paranoid and give QR codes out with reference material, because when someone's like, oh, you'll just find it. Like, are you kidding me? So it's very meta. Yes, that's me. Like, not vain, just thought it was
Hold on,
funny.
let's make sure you can find a browser on this.
Oh yeah, this is
That
what
would be helpful. Okay. Oh.
What the?
I'll say that
I
as
have too
they're
many.
navigating to the website now, you see the big Join Now button in the upper right-hand corner. Who is it actually for, right? Like, what's the persona that fits for? Because it doesn't solve for everybody. That's intending to be a point for people like me who sit in organizations.
Oh, did I say that out loud? I didn't say that out loud. You didn't hear it.
Yeah, okay, so we go to the website. Now what do you do when you're here, right? You're like, okay, like, one of the things I really like to do when I go to a foundation's website, and I think I gave you like the laundry list of foundations that I'm a part of, is I like to look at the member list. So when you look at the member list, these are people that also give a you-know-what about security. And so, you may not be surprised to see Apple and Cisco and Ericsson, but as you keep going down the list, like ARM and Boost and like, you're going to see like tons of companies that are supporting what maintainers and developers and people working on the projects here at the OpenSSF do. So if your company is on this list, one of the things that you get are membership benefits. And we'll talk a little bit about trainings and stuff like that, which are also free, but as a member you kind of get a little bit more. But as you can see, like, lots of companies care about security. So that's always something that I like to do first, just like, what company am I going to be in if I join? But then the other thing that I think is super important is to go to the actual projects that make up the OpenSSF. Now, like I said, when I started, we had Guac, which I don't think was actually a part of OpenSSF yet, and I don't know if y'all have heard of Guac, not Guac, Salsa. I get confused because we're working on Guac.
Because they're both
Salsa, right? It's a
delicious.
framework. But it was so highly adopted, and then it got, I don't know, donated to OpenSSF, and then, then there was like SigStore from ChainGuard, and then it just kind of blew up, which is awesome. So you can filter by graduated projects, so that would be SigStore. Projects that are in incubation, like Guac. Percona is currently working on Guac because their database is Postgres, and so they wanted an open source database on an open source project, and we're like, heck yeah, we're happy to support you. We're not a security company, but we're working on a security project. Sounds good to me. Then you also have what are in the sandbox. And the sandbox are the projects that are really just starting to get started. And then we have ones we're not even sure, to be determined. So because I work in like a company that is a database company, my job is to see where can we make the most impact. And again, I said we are working on Guac. It just so happened at one of these events, I met somebody that was Kusari, Ben Cotton, and he hit me up on LinkedIn. He's like, I see you're with Percona, we're using Postgres, can you help us out? That's my job. My job is to connect people to projects that are gonna help make things work. So this is always like, and there's Salsa, oh, our good old Salsa. This is a great place to start, is go to the website, but go with a mission in mind. You wanna see who the members are, because these are the people that you're gonna like hang out with while you build your projects that are in the Slack channels. You have open access to companies that maybe you've always wanted to work for, but never could, so you work together on an open source project. Think about the networking that you're doing, right? Showcasing your skills to a potential employer, or showcasing your skills to your own employer. I just think like, stuff like that can never be looked like, don't take that for granted, because I was unemployed for 7 months, and it was all the foundations that I was a part of that kept me going, that opened my networks even wider to get me to where I am today. So we heard, I don't know if you were in the keynote talking about the 260,000 jobs lost in 2023, I was one of them. But when you find a project or an organization that you really like, the sky is the limit in terms of like your network.
Absolutely. I say this to a lot of people. Every time I give a talk about open source, I always drive home, there is so much opportunity. There's so much opportunity to make a name for yourself, to give back, but also to meet amazing people doing really impressive work. And that's, to me, a really great bonus of being able to participate in communities like this.
And if you're like, F the website, that was unhelpful, the Slack channel is amazing. Like, honestly. So again, that's like a link. Oh, Catherine, look, you're in there. Isn't that nice?
Oh, hey, hi.
You can see all of the channels that are there, and literally you can ask a question to any channel and somebody's gonna help you. It's such an open and welcoming community. It really is the epitome of what it's like to be in open source. And you know, I'm not a developer, I'm not a coder, I haven't written a line of anything, but even I'm welcome here, so that's
Everybody's
huge.
welcome. And I think the biggest takeaway, though, from like, why do I need to join OpenSSF Slack, right? Because as we just showed you, there's a lot of work, and it's really tough, I think, to figure out where to start. As a maintainer, for example, right? Which of these tools is useful for me? I can tell you, you probably want to go look at the best practices badge. That'd be a great thing to look at. Maybe look at OpenSSF scorecard. That's another great thing as a maintainer. But what if I'm not a maintainer or a contributor to a project? What if I'm an OSPO?
What if you're consuming and you want to make sure that you're doing it securely? Well, you look at a project like S2C2F, which is an unfortunate name, but a great project. And it details exactly how you can go about ensuring that your organization is consuming open source packages and components in a way that is safer for that organization.
But what if you don't remember any of the things we said today? That's why we want to make sure that everybody signs up on OpenSSF Slack, because those are the people that you're going to need. Those are the people that will help you. Those are the people that will help you once you want to, because it's inevitable, right? You'll want to, once you start using these tools, you'll want to contribute to them. You'll find a bug. Please open pull requests, right? That's how open source software survives and how it is sustainable.
So as you're going into the Slack, you're going to fit, we've talked about the personas just a little bit before, but as you're coming into OpenSSF, think about what you're there for. Like, what are you coming to solve? Because all of these projects and initiatives are designed to solve particular problems. So when you're coming in, you know that you're a maintainer and you're really struggling with ensuring that you're doing the right thing. Maybe you're feeling particularly interested in security, which I know is not always the case. You know, being able to come into, have access to a group of people like OpenSSF, being able to talk to the very folks that have defined what checks and what the requirements are for these various projects is invaluable to you. You can get those questions answered very quickly. And then maybe, you know, you turn around and you contribute back to the project too, because that's how this whole thing works.
So like we talk about how open source was like the wild, wild west, right? And now we're solving yesterday's problems tomorrow.
I always get this analogy wrong.
I did it. It's still the wild, wild west. You're just doing it like you're flipping the script, right? So you're the wild, wild west trying to find the loopholes in the code. You're trying to solve the problems. It's still crazy. It's still whatever you want it to be. But it's just in a different manner. It's for security purposes.
So we thought about this, and we've touched on a few of these, but you know, what are some good starting points? You know, you're not really sure still what you're here for. You're still just interested in OpenSSF. Maybe you're new to your organization, and your organization is like, you got to go to this sauce fusion thing. You got to figure this out. What is this whole? What's an SBOM? What's that all buzz about, right? So these are some great projects for anybody coming in. There's something of value to take from each of these projects. Even if it's nothing more than meeting the people who created the projects, to be able to connect you further with other things that might solve your problems. So we've got the best practices badge, what we've talked about a little bit. We've got the OpenSSF security scorecard, which evaluates your repository for the project.
Checklist. It's a really useful checklist.
It's a bit more. It's a really super
It's a good
souped
starting
up
point.
checklist. And then my favorite, S2C2F, which we really could consider renaming to something sort of Mexican food themed, if we could figure that
salsa,
acronym
guac.
out. Yeah.
Enchiladas.
And then we have fairly recently released, really robust free developer training, which if your organization is not a member of OpenSSF, in addition to these free trainings, there's a wealth of training available to your organization once you become a member. And I can't understate that value to my organization, particularly because it's incredible. These are the very folks that are building these projects, building everything that we use, right, are developing these training modules and these training packages to be able to encourage other folks to step forward and do the work that needs to be done.
And I have something to go off with the training. So Percona is a member of CNCF, and you can get CKA certified. And to get CKA certified, you can also get listed on the Kubernetes IO website, but you have to have 3 CKA certifications within your organization. You have to fill out this long questionnaire, and then boom, you're on the website. So for your financial institution that you're trying to figure this stuff out, guess what? You can also get certain certified. So if then you have badges on your website that say that you're OpenSSF certified and whatever, that makes your company look better. So it's all these things that help you look more secure, not just for your company, but also for consumers. So when somebody has to pay for the beer, you're going to want to make sure that the person paying for it is following best practices and has a badge that has been denoted by a bunch of experts in the industry, right? So again, when I say like flipping the script on it, it's also like when you were a kid and you're doing bug bounties and stuff like that. Now you're hunting for the badges and the certifications to make sure your company is compliant so that you can get that next customer, because one of the things we're not talking about, which we should, is compliance. How many people in this room have gotten an email saying that their information has been stolen and that they now are a part of a free credit protection program for the next 6 months and all of that stuff? Right? Wouldn't you love if the company that sent you that and you went to their website, you saw that they at least tried? That they at least had a couple of things, you know, like, are you at least GDPR, like, certified? So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, trust in, like, security, trust in consumers, but also trust in, like, that your company that you're working with is taking the right steps.
Be a part of the solution.
Yeah.
So let's say you've come along with us this far in our journey, right? You're here, thank you. You're trying to investigate what does the OpenSSF have to offer you as a member, as an end user, as an attendee, right? And now, but you've identified a few projects. Maybe this best practices badge seems like something you want to implement. That's some low-hanging fruit, right? You just add that to your project, sign on board, show that you're committed, right, to security. But what happens next, right? What happens after you start to use these tools and get involved in the community? So one that I really like to talk about is when you're using something and it becomes business critical and it becomes critical to the way that you release your software and position yourself in the community, one of the best advantages to contributing to open source communities is influence, right? If you depend on something, you want a seat at the table. You want to be part of the conversation that sets the direction for where this project goes, for a lot of reasons, right? And one of them is because you want to make sure that it continues to meet your needs. Software is not, set it and forget it, right? This is an ongoing, living, breathing thing that needs constant care and feeding, like my adorable puppy that we all saw earlier. But it's very important, I think, that you want to have that seat at the table.
I'd like to add to that as well. If you're consuming open source components into your organization, in my mind, it is a risk decision to contribute back to it. If you're not contributing to a project you are consuming, then you are accepting the risk of doing so. Period.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Boom.
Really?
I mean, you could drop the mic, but I don't think he would be happy with you.
that,
Yeah.
So how do you, once you've decided, yes, I'm in, I want to use these tools, they are incredibly helpful for me in my work and in my business, so then what? What happens when you want to, you've used Scorecard, you've used the best practices badge, they're awesome and are solving problems. How do you start to kind of give back and try to get involved and try to get that seat at the table? Well, I think the first thing you want to do is you want to, well, Lori showed us the website. So on that website, there is a menu item that says get involved, and you will find a calendar. And that calendar lists all of the meetings where people get together and they solve the problems around these various tools.
And they're not like meetings like the ones you dread that could be an email.
No,
this is
these
like
are
where there's
fun meetings.
actual like conversation happening and networking and things like that.
And people from the entire industry, right? All different companies, all different career levels. It's really good stuff. And they're all very open and welcoming.
And it's all vendor neutral again, like just the definition of open source, right? It's vendor neutral. So you will be there with with your Googles, your Azures, your AWS, all trying to solve the same problem, because that's the beauty of open source, right? You innovate faster together. And then if you fork it and go your own way, that's cool, but everybody solved a core issue and then splinters or stays together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I really encourage you to really take that first step. You don't have to participate. Here's the other thing. We need to acknowledge the fact that getting involved in open source communities can be very intimidating, because I'll just tell my own personal story. I'm very comfortable with this at this point, but early in my career, I was not. I was a user of an open source project and a developer benefiting from the code that everyone else shared for, I want to say, 10 years before I worked up the courage to open a pull request with actual code in it. Because there's a lot of fear there, right? Everyone's going to know I don't know what I'm doing, right? Everyone's going to see all of my mistakes in my code, and yes, of course, but everybody makes those mistakes. Whether it's documentation, code, whether it's making slides for a presentation, we all do it, and it's fine, and that's the great thing. I have been very fortunate to have been part of open source communities that are very kind and very welcoming. And what I found when I opened that first pull request was that people were thankful, number one. Thank you for even opening it. Thank you for contributing. Thank you for making the effort to write some code or write some documentation and hit that pull request button. That's the first step. And then the best part of it was I got people reviewing my work and giving me useful feedback. And it never made me feel bad about it. It made me learn, and it made me a lot better at what I do. So I think that's a big part of it.
Ego is not your amigo.
So do the thing. Yes, it's intimidating, but that's fine. You kind of get over it pretty quickly, surprisingly, in fact.
Is it time for questions?
Yeah, no, I think we wanted to make sure that at the end of the day, we want everybody to get involved in the OpenSSF. We want everybody to benefit from the great work that people are doing with developing these tools. But another thing we would love to have help with is helping spread the word. So yeah, I'm a little biased here. I think I mentioned earlier that I co-chair the DevRel community, and these lovely people next to me help out quite a bit in that community as well. So we need more, because here's the problem with, again, I'm a huge fan, legitimately, of the tools that are coming out of this organization. I would have loved to have had them in my previous life as an engineer. I wish I had Scorecard back then. But if you're not getting those tools in the hands of the people who will benefit, then what's the point, right? So that's what we're really here for, is we want to go out into the world. We want you to go out within your companies. We want you to go out within your communities. Tabatha, we can tell you about some communities she's involved in, for example. She organizes a really cool conference. And when you go out, not just talking to each other, right? Talking to the people that we don't get to talk to. If you can help us do that, you're doing a tremendous thing for security of our entire ecosystem.
It feels really good to be involved with an organization whose values align with all of ours, right? Like open source as a whole, there's such a strong community component to it that it makes sense that the only way that we're going to solve the problems that have been created somewhat by open source and the complexities there is to use and leverage community again. Coming into the community, the DevRel community group, we sort of act as the info booth. So don't be afraid to come and just join the Slack channel there, reach out to us and let us know that you're kind of lost.
Join the meetings. We also have an open meeting that's not even, it's not even really a meeting. It's an office hours. It's a place to just come and connect and just hang out with each other and try and get work done. It's great.
Can we pivot to questions?
Yeah, I think we
Does anybody
talk
have
a
any
lot,
questions?
and it's probably time to go to
I feel like
questions.
we talked more than we wanted to. Yes.
So I'm now realizing why I hadn't heard of some of this, because 2020 is actually pretty recent. I've been heads down in code for that period of time. How does this relate in the industry to? So I'm a life member of the Open Web Application Security Project.
Okay.
I've used
That's awesome.
a lot of those projects extensively.
Beautiful.
My advocacy work and technical work. I kind of see at the highest level Scorecard as being in the same genre as the educational piece of the loss.
So that's the thing, right? Like, we can't work in silos. So, like, I've given, again, like I gave you the laundry list of foundations that I'm a part of. I give a talk about open source projects solving supply chain security issues. I talk about CNCF, I talk about OWASP, I talk about OpenSSF, and I talk about the need to collaborate across the board, because there's a lot of amazing brains out there doing a lot of the same things. They just fall under different organizational umbrellas. So the more we can talk to each other, the more we can network within each other, the stronger the security ecosphere becomes in general. So if you're seeing that there's a correlation between OpenSSF and something OWASP does, then go to OpenSSF, bring your OWASP peeps and say, hey, maybe we can partner on this because this takes us this long. What are you guys doing? How can we add this into our project, or how can you maybe add our piece into your project to make it that much stronger? So there's no competition in terms of, well, our security group is better than yours.
Yeah.
No, but that's what I mean, though. It's like, if we're not talking to each other, then yeah, you're gonna say, okay, like, I saw this, it's very similar. Well, cool. Bring it to us so that we can then help
Make
expound
friends.
on it, make friends, and see, like, wow, we really just kind of duplicated efforts here. What can we do? What is our piece of that pie?
And on your topic there about the supply chain, I actually did manage to get a pull request accepted by Ruby Gems for their server side to protect against Techo squatting.
That feels
Nice.
good,
Awesome.
doesn't it? It feels really good when your pull request is accepted.
That was the first time my other pull request got accepted, but it was like squashed version without giving us credit. That was
And it makes you want to do it over and over and over again.
Anyone else? Come on, this is gonna
Who's
be like
going
the
to join
most-
us at our
yes.
next DevRel meeting?
Could you talk about non-code contributions?
Yes, we love those.
That is my life.
I like to describe myself as a recovering software engineer.
So one of the ways that I contribute is through evangelism. As I go out and I work between different groups, I'm a part of the security B-sides movement, and so I try to bring what I know from OpenSSF and try to get more security and researchers involved in OpenSSF. In addition to that, and that's not obvious contributions, right? We're not talking about something that you can easily assign to a commit. We're talking about things that are just sort of that invisible work that has to be done, regardless if it's OpenSSF, if it's OWASP, if it's any other community-based thing, especially in open source. It all requires a bit of this glue. We all have to take care of the puppy. And sometimes it looks like, sometimes somebody's got to take the puppy to the vet, and that's very obvious, and we see that. Sometimes you just have to cuddle the puppy, and that's what needs to be done, and take the puppy out for a walk.
I also want to say, I've done a lot of both, right? The non-code part is harder. It's the hard part. The code is pretty straightforward, right? It works, it doesn't work. You can write some automated tests, you can do a little test-driven development, and then you know it works, it's great. But the human part, the open source diplomacy, right? Working together for a common goal can be very challenging, right? It's not so straightforward. So there are so many ways, right? It's showing up, taking your seat at the table, helping spread the word. I haven't written code in a few years now.
So one of my favorite ways of being a non-code contributor, and you'd probably think this doesn't make any sense for what I do, but I love being on program committees. I love seeing what people are submitting to conferences. You know, what is the buzzword bingo of the day? Obviously, it's AI right now, whatever. But like when you, that is such, when you have 200 plus abstracts to read, and you are literally saying how you think a program should be built based on how this abstract is written. Is this someone that has spoken before if it's not a blind review? Going through and rating a talk, that's huge. It takes a lot of time. And if you're on a committee that then wants to meet to discuss, then it's really going back and forth with saying why this talk deserves to be in and why this one doesn't. Talk about a seat at the table. You've just built out a program that all the people in this room are going to have a chance to choose yes or no. That to me is one of the most underrated but most needed things, is to volunteer to be an abstract reviewer on a program committee. And again, I haven't written a line of code, but if you're around long enough, and you kind of are that sounds really interesting and I haven't seen anybody talk about that yet, that to me gets a 5 stars. Why aren't we talking about this? Being on a program committee or volunteering for a board position, where you're literally the one leading the meetings, you're the one helping organize, you're the one helping corral the cats. It's huge, but I think we're over time.
We
'cause
are, yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Project management, though, I just want to say that. If you are an organized person,
Yeah.
please, for the love of God, join us.
So thank you so much. We hope you got stuff out of it, and we'll be around.
And thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you for caring about this stuff.
Feel free to link with us on LinkedIn or whatever your social of choice is. I'm pretty sure we're everywhere. Yeah, thank you.